Hey, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending on where you are at watching this video. I am Chris Johnson from Abide OKC, and we are finishing our final day of Holy Week, 8 Days That Changed the World by Jentezen Franklin. Now, we've been sharing a little bit of this book. Some of what we've been sharing has just been me sharing my heart based on what I'm reading in Scripture. And so as I do, I will go ahead and share some scripture references with you for our reading today. I will also go ahead and share my screen because we have the resource pulled up and ready to go as well. And so I hope this has been a blessing to you. I know it's been a blessing to me, and as with, I hope, more than just me, I hope we're excited that this is Resurrection Week, Passion Week, Holy Week. But we have something to be thankful for. We have something to tell people about. And so I pray that you have enjoyed this study, especially if you are going through it for the first time. So here are our readings for Sunday. Remember, this column is Matthew, this column is Mark, this column is Luke, and this column is John. We have the empty tomb witnesses, those that went to the tomb on that Sunday morning and witnessed the tomb empty. Then we also have the resurrection appearances. I thought these were good to call out because I was making a list of the number of people that got to see the resurrected Jesus, like how powerful and how beautiful that must have been to get to experience that, especially those that got to experience that firsthand or in private, not with everybody else. Like, I think that's cool. And so Jentezen Franklin also has in the book on the final page of this day 8 devotion that you can see the full events recorded in Matthew chapter 28, verses 1 through 13, Mark chapter 16, verses 1 through 14, Luke 24, verses 1 through 49, and John chapter 20, verses 1 through 23. Now, I want to read it in Matthew and Luke as Jentezen did here. And so I'm going to go ahead and switch my screen to that. All right. So we're going to go to Matthew 28, verses 1 through 8. It says, after the Sabbath ended, at first light of dawn on the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to take a look at the tomb. Suddenly, the earth shook violently beneath their feet as an angel of the Lord Jehovah descended from heaven. Lightning flashed around him, and his robe was dazzling white. The guards were stunned and terrified, lying motionless like dead men. Then the angel walked up to the tomb, rolled away the stone, and sat on top of it. I mean, what an awesome spectacle, right? Remember how heavy this was. Remember that it was sealed, all of these things. And it just took one angel, right? I think it's cool. The women were breathless and terrified until the angel said to them, there is no reason to be afraid. I know you're here looking for Jesus who was crucified. He isn't here. He has risen victoriously, just as he said. Come inside the tomb and see the place where our Lord was lying. Then run and tell his disciples that he is risen from the dead, and I give you his message. I am going ahead of you in Galilee, and you will see me there. Like how, I love that. I'm going to give you Jesus's message. By the way, he said, tell them this. Like, so cool. One of the things that I find interesting, especially if you're reading the various translations, one of them mentions the fact that the other disciples didn't believe them. And so, we see that in a few different versions. And I felt that was a powerful call out. I mean, let's see, I think probably Mark spells it out the best, but look at what it says. It says early on the first day of the week in verse 9, after rising from the dead, Jesus appeared to Mary Magdalene, from whom he had cast out 7 demons. After she had seen Jesus, she ran to tell his disciples, who were all emotionally devastated and weeping, and rightfully so, right? Excitedly, Mary told them, he's alive, and I have seen them. But even after hearing this, they didn't believe her. After this, Jesus appeared to two of the disciples who were on their way to another village, appearing in a form they did not recognize. They went back to Jerusalem to tell the rest of the disciples, but they also did not believe that it was true. Then Jesus appeared before the 11 apostles as they were eating a meal. Now, one of the things I want to pause on and tell you here that I thought it was important to note, I gave you some of the scripture references in the screenshot a minute ago, but here's some notable call outs for this resurrection day. That in Luke 24:11, it says the disciples struggled to believe the resurrection report. We see here twice they struggled to receive the resurrection report. Jesus appeared to the women at the tomb. He appeared to the disciples, some separately and together. Remember, one of my favorite versions of this is in the book of John, where they're told about the resurrection and that Jesus isn't there. And it says that Peter and John run, and it says the one that Jesus loved outran Peter. I thought that was funny. But, John goes inside, John goes to the tomb, Peter goes inside the tomb, and they don't see Jesus' body there. And they still aren't believing the report. You have the men on the road to Emmaus and talking about all the events of the week and everything that transpired on Good Friday and all of this. And he's saying they went back to Jerusalem here in verse 13 in Mark and to tell the rest of the disciples that they didn't believe it. Then we're going to go to John 21 in a second. But Peter, Thomas, Nathaniel, James, John, and two others in the book of John 21 get to see Jesus again, okay? And so, Jesus has been appearing in the resurrected body a few times, and no one believes it. I want to read, before I read this last part of Mark, I want to read in John, because, once again, it's one of my favorites. It says that Mary went back to the tomb after telling everybody that, of course, Jesus resurrected, they didn't believe her. She stooped to peer inside, and she was sobbing, and said she was looking through her tears, and she saw two angels in dazzling white robes, sitting where Jesus' body had been laid, one at the head and one at the feet. And they said, "Dear woman, why are you crying?" Mary answered, "They have taken my Lord away, and I don't know where they've laid him." And then she turned around to leave, and there was Jesus standing in front of her, but she didn't realize that it was him. He said to her, "Dear woman, why are you crying? Who are you looking for?" Mary answered, thinking he was only the gardener. And look at the exchange. And I love this in the Passion. It's very conversational, but it's a woman beside herself, and she goes into like story mode. And so she said, "Sir, if you have taken his body somewhere else, please tell me, and I will go." And it says before she could continue, Jesus interrupted her and said, "Mary." Turning to face him, she said, "Rabboni," which is Aramaic for my teacher. Jesus cautioned her, "Mary, don't hold on to me now, for I have not yet ascended to God, my Father. And he's not only my Father and God, but he's your Father and your God. Now go to my brothers and tell them what I've told you, that I am ascending to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God." I mean, it's so powerful, but he gives her that charge to tell them. And I also love this note. It's the first time in John's gospel that Jesus calls the disciples brothers. I think that's beautiful. And so back to the book of Mark, we see once again, he appeared to the women. He appeared to two disciples on the road, and then he appeared before all 11 as they were eating a meal. It says he corrected them for having such hard, unbelieving hearts because they did not believe those who saw him after his resurrection. I think that's so important to call out, because look what he says next. He said to them, "As you go into all the world, preach openly the wonderful news of the gospel to the entire human race." Tell them what you just experienced. Tell them what you've seen. That's the gospel. That's the good news. "And whoever believes the good news and is baptized will be saved. And whoever does not believe the good news will be condemned. And these miracle signs will accompany those who believe. They will drive out demons in the power of my name. They will speak in tongues. They will be supernaturally protected from snakes and from drinking anything poisonous. And they will lay hands on the sick and heal them." Like, we talk about this so often, the Great Commission, but he's telling them because of their disbelief, like, we should preach all the more. So listen to what happened. As they said this, we get a little bit of a snapshot of what's next. After saying these things, Jesus was lifted up into heaven and sat down at the place of honor at the right hand of God. And the apostles went out announcing the good news everywhere as the Lord himself consistently worked with them, validating the message they preached with miracle signs that accompanied them. When you preach the gospel, these signs will follow. When you preach the good news, he will confirm it by his power, by his Holy Spirit. That's why it's so important to be faithful in what he's done in us. And I was sharing this morning in one of our gatherings that I want to be the type of person that lives out the resurrection and the good news every day. I don't want it to just be a day that I hold high and holy above all else. Although today is a special day, I'm making no mistake of that, but it should be something that marks me for eternity. Each and every moment I wake up with breath in my lungs, that I should be preaching the good news of Jesus Christ, what he's done for me, what he's done for you, what he's done for us. That should happen all the time. And so I hope that you can hear that this morning, because even Jentezen in like the third page was saying in his final thoughts, the real question isn't whether all of this is true. He says, I believe historical evidence declares that to any objective observer or scholar. No, the real question is, what will you do with Jesus? What role will he play in your life? How will he fit into the fabric of your home? Will you take him to work or school with you? Like, the time for excuses is gone. The time for playing church is gone. Right now, more than ever, with the chaos and craziness of everything going on, we must preach the good news of Jesus Christ. We have to tell somebody what he's done in us. That's our role. That's our mission. That's the great commandment. It wasn't a suggestion. It wasn't something that he said, oh, it'd be nice if you did this, but it was something he commanded us to do. One last thing I wanted to share with you guys is in the book of John. And so, remember, he's giving them the words, he's presenting himself to the disciples, but he says here in John chapter 20, verse 24, it says, one of the 12 wasn't present when Jesus appeared to them, and it was Thomas, whose nickname was the twin. So I want you to notice his nickname is the twin, not Doubting Thomas. We often in churches and Christian world have called him Doubting Thomas. His name was Thomas and nickname was the twin. The disciples informed him, we've seen the Lord. Still unconvinced, Thomas replied, there's no way I'm going to believe this unless I personally see the wounds of the nails in his hands, and I touch them with my finger, and I put my hand into the wound of his side where he is pierced. It says 8 days later, Thomas and all the others were in the house together, and even though all the doors were locked, Jesus suddenly stood before them and said, peace to you. Then, looking into Thomas's eyes, he said, put your finger here in the wounds of my hands. Here, put your hand in my wounded side and see for yourself. Thomas, don't give in to your doubts any longer, but just believe. Then the words spilled out of his heart. You are my Lord and my God. And I want you to hear these words because I've heard this said in churches today about, I just wish I could see Jesus. Jesus responded, Thomas, now that you've seen me, you believe. But there are those who have never seen me with their own eyes, but have believed in me with their hearts, and they will be blessed even more. If you can hear these words today, the gospel that Jesus is risen, that Jesus died on the cross for my sins and your sins, and he's been resurrected and ascended into heaven, sitting at the right hand of the Father, making intercession for you and for me. He says, if you believe in me, you are even more blessed than those who got to see me. Like, you need to hold on to that and believe and stand on that word. As I finish today, I think the last story that's really sticks with me. It's further down here, and it's in John chapter 21. I'm not going to read all of it, but Jesus appears to a group of the disciples yet again, Peter, Thomas, Nathaniel, James, John, and two others. And often, like we could sometimes get, I'm sure they were all overcome emotionally. Jesus had appeared to them, and they really didn't know what's the new dynamic, what's going to happen, what's it going to be like. How many of us can be like Peter and go back to our old way of things? He says, I'm going to fishing. Maybe he's just, man, I need to get my thoughts right. I said some dumb things. I denied Jesus, even when he told me that I would. I told him that I wouldn't, and I still denied him. And they all replied, we'll go with you. So you got a fishing crew. And it says they went out and fished through the night, but they caught nothing. It says then at dawn, Jesus was standing there on the shore, but the disciples didn't realize that it was him. And he called out to them, hey guys, did you catch any fish? And I cannot help but think of the cinematic portrayal of Jesus in The Chosen when he first appeared to Peter and a few of them as they were out fishing, not catching anything. And there's something here that apart from Jesus, we can try to proclaim the good news, try to proclaim the gospel, really be fishers of men, but in our own power and come up with nothing. But if we become fishers of men, empowered by the Holy Spirit, empowered by his miracles and his power, preaching and teaching through us, we can be successful. And you'll see in this story, and I encourage you to read it. It is one of my absolute favorite, but you see a recommissioning of Peter. The same Peter who denied Jesus by a fire is recommissioned by Jesus by a fire. And they're having fish that morning for breakfast. And Jesus welcomes him to sit with him. And he asks him, Peter, do you love me? 3 times. Y'all, I don't know how hard that must have been for Peter, not only to deny Jesus 3 times, but to be asked face to face with Jesus, do you love me? And Peter told him, I do. And there were still things that I know that Peter had to work out. And I believe that it occurred during those days leading up to the great sermon that we see in Acts after Peter and the rest of the disciples are filled with the power of the Holy Spirit. But that's exactly what I mean. Apart from Jesus, we can do nothing. And so if you've heard anything through this Holy Week, I'm going to ask you the same question that Jentezen did in the book. Jesus Christ is risen. In many churches, we're taught to say he is risen indeed. And I ask you this. So what will you do with that good news? What will you do from this point forward with your life? I told our church that part of taking communion, part of being in unity or abiding in Christ means drawing a line in the sand. It means that you stand for something that others in the world will not stand for. But continue standing. Be willing to be persecuted for his great name. The disciples counted it joyful, counted it an honor to be persecuted for the name of Jesus Christ. And I believe that should be us too. That's the way I want to live my life. That's the way I want my family to live their lives. So that's the way we're going to do it. To echo what Joshua said, as for me and my house, we're going to serve the Lord. And that's what we're standing on. And so I pray that this has been something that's blessed you. Please remember to comment in WhatsApp or comment on YouTube. Tell us what the Lord is saying to you. Encourage somebody. Tell them the good news and celebrate the resurrection of Jesus Christ each and every day. God bless you, and we'll talk to you soon.